Hello, and welcome to HPTV, the Harry Potter TV show podcast about the Harry Potter TV show and Hagrid specifically. I'm Mitchell Marshall, here with my sister, Jaime Ramos, and we are down a host today, but that's okay. There was an emergency, maybe a fire, we don't know. No, everyone is safe.
Not a fire.
No fire. But it was described as a fire in a very confusing way. But we are going to talk about Hagrid as a character dive today. And first, it's been quiet, but we had such a big news dump that I think it makes sense that it's quiet. But Jamie, have there been any Harry Potter happenings in your life this week?
I haven't seen much. You heard a little something, right?
I heard
about Universal.
That Universal may be getting permission to have Harry Potter as part of their theme park that they're going to build here. Originally, they weren't going to, and we assumed it was because Warner Brothers has the studio tour here, but it seems like they may be coming to an agreement. They may be coming to an agreement where they're like, actually, maybe it's good because we have this big TV show, and the more Harry Potter we have out that people are excited about, the better, and it may not be that harmful. But that is from The Sun, which is not always the most reputable. And it kind of made it sound like it was going to be an attraction. So I wonder if it's going to be a very small area. And the plan that I sent to them was for a full second theme park, just Harry Potter based, including like a 5-in-1 roller coaster. So I doubt they're going to be following along with that. But it does make sense that the home of Potter has at least some nod to it. And maybe it's something that could be expanded depending on popularity. But it's hearsay, but it's plausible. And go on.
I did see one thing about some people saying rumors out there, and maybe this was already rumored, but one of the people rumored as Voldemort is Nicholas Hoult, which
right.
I don't love.
He's been rumored for a while. Yeah, I'd say his youth. Well, maybe he was just a fan cast early on. Also, he just played Lex Luthor, and so I'm kind of imagining him bald Voldy, and I'm like, let's give some other non-bald people a chance to play a bald person.
He has a good bald head, though.
He does.
Help me if I ever have to shave my head. My head's so bumpy and ridgy.
I'll say he can do anything like he is, but you think him and John Lithgow being rivals? That doesn't feel right.
And he's just too young. He's supposed to be. Voldemort's kind of old.
The kid who plays Dudley did post to Instagram a picture of him looking, I don't think he's in costume or anything, but he's just kind of looking up and saying, Harry, I don't think you're a waste of space, which is kind of sweet.
Oh, spoiler for book 7. Dudders. It is cute to see some of the kids like commenting on stuff.
Exciting times, not so exciting times, but that's okay. They're in the thick of it.
But we just got a lot. Last week we got a lot of stuff.
We did. We always want more. That reminds me of that Taylor Swift song.
Oh, I was thinking Britney Spears, give me more.
And the Taylor Swift song is, and the crowd chanted more. Ugh. Ooh. I can't. I might have butchered
Swiftie
that.
Fail.
Sorry, Swifties. Let's move on to our favorite half giant, Mr. Rubeus Hagrid. So yeah, we're gonna give the basic outline of him and then kind of go into what he means to the story and how that needs to be reflected. So Hagrid was born to a wizard father and a giant mother. It's funny because I know it means like the species giant mother, but it kind of just sounds like a giant mother. As a half giant, Hagrid possesses great physical strength and endurance and resilience. He's twice as tall as the average man. But Jamie, do you have that passage up? Do you want to read that?
Sure. Oh, I should have mentioned that. My daughter has allowed me to start reading Harry Potter to her, which is exciting. And so it is interesting rereading some of this stuff. Even though I listen to the books all the time, it just goes into the back of my brain. So like actually reading it actively with her.
We started a little book club because we don't have enough Harry Potter in our lives. And it is interesting to really read those chapters because they're short enough that I was like, oh, I can really focus on the little elements that you don't remember. Like in chapter 1, there's like a line that says, this is where our story begins. And I'm like, if you would have told me that's in Harry Potter, I would have told you you're wrong. And so there's just this tiny little details that you kind of forget, or you've mingled with the movies that you don't just see on a reread, but like when I'm reading it through the eyes of an 8-year-old is interesting.
and reading it to her and the question she asks, and also like remembering back to when I first read this stuff because she's seen little pieces of the movies because our sister showed her. But and then she's seen obviously the imagery of them because I have stuff everywhere and like you can't help it. But we were talking about how Dudley looks different. And then so we work on, just because she's a little 7-year-old, learning how to read and listen, like descriptor words to help her imagine characters. So like this description of Hagrid that I'm about to give and like Dudley and stuff like that, I was like going through and I was like, oh, it's kind of weird because I have this mixture of like the movie character slash my who I decided in my brain people look like characters. And so anyway, but this is how Hagrid is described when he's flying in on the motorcycle to drop off Harry. If the motorcycle was huge, it was nothing to the man sitting astride it. He was almost twice as tall as a normal man and at least 5 times as wide. He looked simply too big to be allowed, and so wild, long tangles of bushy black hair and a beard hid most of his face. He had hands the size of trash can lids, and his feet in their leather boots were like baby dolphins. That's how big he's supposed to be.
I think it makes me feel like they not only could have gone bigger in the films, but we've already seen one bit of filming with Hagrid. They could keep going bigger. He's supposed to kind of be 11 and a half feet tall,
Yeah.
those massive hands. And look, it's hard to shoot that every time, all the time. Well, he's still such a human character, to try and get that contrast with the students that he's around. But yeah, I mean, he's supposed to be
And
really shaggy,
five
as
times as
well
wide as a
as a
regular
human.
man. So, like, how big that would like the proportion of that probably is not really easy to do. But
Well,
they could have gone in a different direction. They didn't have to try to copy the
I
movies,
mean,
but whatever.
it's like how Dudley was supposed to be wider than he is tall when he's 13, and I just don't think that's going to happen.
No.
Hagrid was born in 1928, and I haven't fact checked this, but it says on his Harry Potter Wikia, in the Forest of Dean. And then he attends Hogwarts starting in 1940. He was sorted into Gryffindor House, which I have a false memory of him being in Hufflepuff. Like, did people just make that up?
I never heard. I always knew he was in Gryffindor.
I mean, it makes actually more sense. Not that he doesn't fulfill the qualities of a
He could
Hufflepuff, but
be a little Hufflepuffy.
he was born again to a human father. I like how it's described his father as Mr. Hagrid, because it's just Hagrid is his last name, but you think of it just as like a first name, really. And his mother, Fridwulfa, which is a lovely giant name. And his mother leaves the family when Hagrid is very young, returning to giant colonies. I read somewhere that it was because Hagrid was small, and I'm like, no, I don't think that's why.
Well, don't have a baby with a human then, lady.
And he was raised by his dad, and he seemed to have a great relationship with his dad. And as he was 6 years old, he could already lift his dad and put him onto things, and he found it funny when he resisted. So Hagrid goes to Hogwarts, I should say, and he knows Tom Riddle. And he is known at the school for being a little bit of a troublemaker because of his addiction to addiction to magical
Love.
creatures, his love for magical creatures.
I was just gonna say, and like a beautiful thing about Hagrid and his love of magical creatures, that's because he feels like they're misunderstood a lot like how he's misunderstood for being half giant. And so people automatically think he's like evil and bad. So he has sympathy for magical creatures in that way, but sometimes the magical creatures are dangerous, but
He doesn't know that line. And you know what? As an adult, he should have known the line with the blast-ended Scroots. But when he didn't know the line when he was at school, I think it was more forgivable. So while he's at school, he's wrongfully accused of opening the Chamber of Secrets and attacking Muggle-born students. So he is expelled, and his wand is broken, snapped. And he also, while at Hogwarts, he raises Aragog, which is blamed as the monster in the Chamber of Secrets. Tom Riddle frames him. Voldemort, just a sniveling douchebag even then. And Dumbledore kind of always knew. He kind of always knew, and that's probably the beginning of Hagrid's immense loyalty to Dumbledore. One thing that was jarring about reading chapter 1 is how skeptical and a little bit condescending Professor McGonagall is about Hagrid and his abilities. Hagrid's father dies while he's at Hogwarts, and so Hagrid is able to remain at Hogwarts, I believe, just as like an assistant gamekeeper of some sort. And because there is another gamekeeper over that time we know of, because Mrs. Weasley talks about him. I think his name was Og. And so Hagrid eventually gets that, and he gets to be keeper of keys, which comes with other responsibilities. And clearly, you know, if there are magical creature things to help out with, he probably helps the magical creatures teacher, who I can't remember his name of, but he retires to spend more times
Kenneburn.
Kennerburn with his remaining limbs. He lives in a hut on the edge of the forest that moves every movie. He raises some illegal creatures, as we'll go through. We'll go through some of those. But yeah, he becomes kind of this beloved figure at Hogwarts. And I think it's interesting. He, of course, will get to, he becomes a teacher, but it's like, what kind of a relationship does he have? Obviously, he's different from Filch. It's too bad we don't have a charming caretaker as well, but he does make it sound like he had this fond relationship, like with Harry's parents and everything. And there is some stuff between this that has been randomly popped up in little things, but not necessarily much on Pottermore. It's kind of in these little mobile games and stuff. So I'll talk about that. But in 1981, he starts to be involved with Harry's story. Now, the timeline of this night does not make sense to me, but at some point, Voldemort attacks the Potters, and the house is kind of on fire. It seems like there's quite a bit of chaos. And at what point do people be like, oh, there's something happening at Groggenchurch Hollow, and how does Dumbledore find out? And how does he get Hagrid there? And wouldn't he go himself? And then Hagrid gets the baby. And then you think that happened at night, and because the next day everyone's celebrating while Vernon's at work. And then Hagrid brings him at night. What were they doing all day? Was Hagrid just chilling with baby Harry?
That's true. Well, and you think, and Snape is somehow involved. Was Snape the one that alerted people to
Well,
come
yeah,
get
he
the
was probably
baby?
watching their windows from afar, although he couldn't see in. He was imagining.
Well, Snape was in the house, so it's like, if the house is on fire,
Yeah.
would
Oh,
you not
that doesn't make
grab the
sense. He
baby?
told Dumbledore, and then Dumbledore was like, Hagrid, you gotta take care of
Go
this
get this.
baby.
Snape left a baby in a burning house. Please go get him. Uh, and then Sirius somehow knew, so he could give him a motorcycle.
In another butchered line from the film. So Hagrid, of course, finds Harry and the Dursleys on the rock, hand delivers his letter, tells him he's a wizard, which sounds lovely when Jim Dale says it. Horrible. No offense to Robbie Coltrane. It's horrible in the movies. But he becomes Harry's first. He has like this scary entrance where he's like this big intimidating thing and we don't know, but then he kind of immediately becomes this trusted element for Harry. You know, Harry in his early days at Hogwarts will go visit Hagrid and ask Hagrid about parts of the world. Hagrid's the first one to tell him about Voldemort. He is very important, and I
We
think
get a lot of exposition. A lot of exposition is through Hagrid.
And Hagrid is, and we kind of talk about this, there's this so much lovability, but then there is like a mistrust sometimes of people that he'll handle things because he can be a bit clumsy, or he's not considered like hyper intelligent, but he is clearly like a caring and capable person. And sometimes there's a little dichotomy with that, him as a character. That's why I could never really see him as a father figure for Harry. There was a love and a nurturing, but not necessarily as a father figure. In the Chamber of Secrets, he once again has suspicion fall on him. So he's temporarily imprisoned, really doesn't like it. Shocker. And he is freed once again by Harry and his friends. And then in Azkaban, does anything pop to your mind of Hagrid's involvement with the kids in The Prisoner of Azkaban?
A lot happens. So they're at Hagrid's hut. Buckbeak's gonna be killed, so that's part of that, where they have to go back with the time turner and save Buckbeak. And then that's kind of where everything starts that night when Harry gets taken by Sirius.
I think it's worth saying in the first book, he has this dragon illegally. And then in the third book, now he's got Buckbeak legally. But then his storyline in that book, it was funny that I spaced this completely, was
He becomes teacher.
The trial. He becomes a teacher, and then he has to go to court. And luckily, Dumbledore gets it so that only Buckbeak's going to get in trouble and not Hagrid, and Hagrid is quite distraught.
And Hermione and Ron like have to really help him.
Yeah, each of them at times pick up
case.
and that brings them closer, because you think they kind of automatically, go over there with Harry and stuff, and it's really good to see his relationship develop with those kids. And they try in the movies a couple times to like have these moments with them and Hagrid, and I think that is going to benefit from time, just seeing that safe place for them, this adult. In Goblet of Fire, he once again has an illegal pet, the Blast-Ended Scroots.
Which he creates, right?
Which, are a crossbreed of like a fire crab and something else. I did read about this today, and I was just like, it always bothered me how you didn't know what they look like because the description was so rough, because you're like, should that literally, she says they couldn't tell like what end was what, which is kind of hilarious. Um,
He's like Frankenstein creating his monster all of a sudden. But also, we learn more about his past in that book a little bit because we meet Madame Maxine. And and we kind of learn a little bit more, and Harry does too, about what people really think about giants and half giants, like the fact that she does not want to admit that she's a half giant, a half breed, if you will.
and it is good because we get Harry. I think this is a really good reset in the writing to say for Harry to be like, oh, there's still so much I don't know about the wizarding world. Like, to not realize that's because in book 4, we also like learn what a Death Eater is. For him to be like, I didn't, understand this prejudice. He's like, it makes a lot of sense that he's a half giant. And then for Ron to be like, ooh, I thought not. And apparently giants are looked at as lowly and angry and dangerous, and to be half even, which obviously gets out because of Rita Skeeter, um, ends up being a huge deal. So it is really consequential for Harry and Hagrid, getting outed in that way.
Yeah. And also we see a little bit of Hagrid helping Harry by telling him about the dragon tasks, but also like the fall of Hagrid is like every time he helps, he also like harms a little bit because he also tells Madame Maxine, who of course tells Fleur, just fine, should kids be battling dragons anyway, whatever. But but that's just like the dichotomy of Hagrid. It's just like he he just is so trusting of people, and so he trusts to tell Madame Maxine, and so we'll talk about that a little later too.
And, I didn't get all the alcohol references the first time I read these books, but he also kind of let some information slip to Voldemort himself in the first book at the pub. He's out there having a good time. In book 5, he's part of the Order of the Phoenix, and he's specifically given a mission to try and recruit the giants. At least recruit them away from Voldemort, if nothing else. And I, for some reason, don't love that chapter, but it does give you a lot of insight into like this other deeper element of the magical world, and of course brings in his familial relationship, finding out his mother has passed, and that he's got a little brother, Mr. Grop. And this is when we also find like Hagrid gets really angry. Like, you see him lose his temper a couple of times. Like it happens in book 4 with who insults Dumbledore, Karkaroff. Yeah, he shoves him up against a tree in the book, and I'd always really enjoyed that. And because that's one of the things I don't want to skip, but in Half-Blood Prince at the very end, he is being, actually it's Order of the Phoenix. Umbridge is going after him, and they have Aurora shooting spells at him, and they're like bouncing off of him, and it kind of shows you the strength that he has and some of the magical abilities that giants have. And yeah, I kind of like the idea of angry Hagrid, like seeing what happens when he's really got to get aggressive.
Well, and it's also part of him that he tries to kind of be the opposite of that and to suppress that giant side of him, but when he needs it, he can pull it out. And I'm like, go for it, man.
Well, and I think, look, I love Robbie Coltrane. I think it's interesting to balance like that nurturing side of him and like the naivety at which he approaches the world, but and it's a huge thing when it comes to his love of the animals. And I really wonder, because they also got, someone who is known for comedy, in a lot of degree, and maybe like family roles, like Nick Frost, like you dreamcast him because he does fit. And so I wonder how they'll handle differences, because in the first movie, Hagrid lets a couple things slip, and the way he reacts is very movie based. It is not the Hagrid from the books, but it's funny. And I just want to make sure that whatever they do for his bumbling personality and the different sides of him, that it feels even more book accurate, and even if that just separates it from Robbie quite a bit.
Yeah. Which you kind of hope it would, to let Robbie stand alone on, with what he was, which is so cherished. But you would want someone, and I don't know if Nick Frost has this, who can like really turn on a dime and be angry
Yeah,
Hagrid, because
lose
you
his,
want him
yeah,
to be scary when he's like that.
I could see it. In the Second Wizarding War era, kind of in the latter books, he is present at the Battle of the Astronomy Tower, and he is unfortunately one of the first people to find Dumbledore when he's passed away, and he remains the caretaker through Deathly Hallows, and he is apparently kind of helping students, helping Neville and the kids be rebellious. He participates in the Battle of Hogwarts. I gotta say, I really thought he was gonna die. I thought he's an emotionally impactful death
Mhm.
that is also, I don't think, is not a huge deal to take that piece off the board. And he didn't.
Hmm.
He didn't die. How
He
cruel
didn't
of
die.
me. I almost pre-mourned him.
But it's interesting the relationship that Hagrid and Voldemort have, because really Hagrid's one of the people that has known Voldemort the longest. Hagrid is one of the first victims, really, of Voldemort who framed him. And so instead of him kind of dying at the end, Voldemort basically kind of tortures him by making him carry Harry and everything, which is like really sick and sad. So that also is a big role, that relationship, even though it's not really direct often, the Hagrid and Voldemort and what they both represent and how um, they despise that in each other.
Yeah. And I think that's one way they could almost expand that slightly and revisit it as like, this is someone Hagrid saw this guy be like the bully and essentially be the quarterback, while Hagrid was kind of one of the outcasts at Hogwarts, you
Mhm.
know? After Hogwarts, we have very limited information, but we kind of know, like, it's referred to that he would still be there to see Harry's kids, and he'd be quite old by then, if he was born in 1928. But I think as a half giant, maybe he doesn't. And magical people also seem to have better ability to not age too much.
Well, I was thinking of that because he was born this time around our grandma, who would have just
Oh
turned
yeah.
97. But also, I wonder what the average life of a giant really is when giants die so often from killing each other. Like, I wonder if they were just
Yeah.
allowed to live how long they're supposed to live
Yeah, maybe they're like turtles and they live for a long time, but then they
without killing
swallow
each other.
a straw.
Okay, onto mobile games.
So in these, Hagrid plays a little role in everyone's life. So he kept working at Hogwarts. He took on the role of special messenger and delivered Hogwarts acceptance letters to unidentified Muggle-born students, and he could pick them up and help them get their school supplies from Diagon Alley. So maybe this is something he thought, I did this with Harry. Maybe I can help these kids transition into their time. It's funny because I kind of think of like when Professor Xavier would go to kids' homes and recruit them to come to his X-Men school. Like, oh, I don't know if Hagrid's the person to deliver that news. Um,
Especially to like Mongol areas where like this is a giant man. What is going on?
Now, on the 1st of September 2008, a student named Ivy Warrington got distracted by the bushes, and Hagrid brought her in to help her get sorted. This must be the silliest little thing that happens in these little mobile games, but they get to use it. Like, he helps calm down the Monster Book of Monsters for Robin Thistlethwaite in the library. This crack.
Oh,
This cracks me up. And then people come and try and help him. Oh, there's a new history of magic teacher. Anyway, apparently,
it is
yeah,
interesting though, like if there ever was like a follow-up to the series, like the years after Harry was there before like Albus gets there, like Hagrid would be like a constant between that time and obviously other staff members, but we're close to Hagrid. We
yeah.
all love Hagrid.
Looks like some students accidentally found Grop and he had to explain who he was. I wonder how trained up Grop really gets, because Hagrid is kind of trying to prove that you can maybe train a giant to be more human, and I don't know if that's going very well. But yeah, there's really all these just little moments that he kind of interacts with students. Apparently, at some point, he's joined at Hogwarts by alumna Luna Scamander, who must be a late relative of Newt, to investigate the appearance of manticores. Anyway, there are lots of fun little things about that, and it's just to say that Hagrid kind of maintains his role as like this kind, helpful staff member that will help you with your little assignment that you're made to do in the app. It says he was still working there in 2017 at 89 years old. Is the most recent we know about, and apparently he will have an extremely long life. And then it says he was helping the Statute of Secrecy task force. Yeah, it is so random, like all these little bits you can tell. He has a lot of interaction in the 80s with someone named Jacob's sibling, which is super vague, whatever that means, but I think that is in Mystery at Hogwarts. And he helps them find some things, accomplish some tasks. It just is really funny that he gets kind of utilized in that way.
Mhm.
Oh, wait, here we go. He rescued Jacob's sibling from Devil's Snare, and he met someone named Ben Copper. And this is when he got his puppy, Fang. We kind of forgot to mention
Oh.
Fang in Hagrid's magical creature adventures. He also has Fluffy, very crucial to the plot of book one, also as well. Yeah, I think Hagrid might be almost the perfect flexible character in the way that he has a great relationship with Harry and Dumbledore, and he plays his part in key moments, but he kind of actually also kind of gets used like for explanations and for different plot devices and different creatures. Like none of his storylines really feel forced. I think you could pull out the lawsuit about Buckbeak, but then Buckbeak's role going forward is kind of fun as well. So
Yeah.
it's kind of wild. We also don't know how good Hagrid was
He,
with wands
he can
because,
start a fire.
yeah,
He does that.
he can start a fire. He can make a boat go zoom, zoom, zoom.
He's just an interesting character because, you think he was only educated, really. I mean, maybe there was more inside, maybe Dumbledore helped him out, but really up until his 3rd year. But also there is element like people even Harry takes advantage of Hagrid and knows how to manipulate him. So there's like also this sad element of people kind of think he's a dummy and play off of that. But he also is really great because he trusts and loves and he'll be, I guess, as devoted to a person as he can until he accidentally slips up and reveals your
Yeah.
secrets.
He also cries a lot, I notice, They like get these tear-stained letters from Hagrid, and I like that. He's a
Yeah.
vulnerable man, but a tough man. There are a few little random bits at the end of his wiki page, and one of them is that fans afterwards were like, "Oh, it's sad that Hagrid never gets married," and J.K. Rowling's response was something like, "Well, at least I didn't kill him."
That's nice.
Uh,
He must have been on the maybe kill list like Ron was.
oh yeah, and Arthur, apparently he is allergic to cats.
Me
Um,
too.
oh,
We're twins.
twinsies. Um, his name came from chapter 20 of The Mayor of Casterbridge by Thomas Hardy, Hagrid's, referring to indigestion. That's funny. All right. Oh, in the video game adaptation of Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, I'm really enjoying this. It was rumored that Hagrid had an evil twin brother named Durga, which is
Oh.
Hagrid backwards. Oh, apparently in the credits of the original film adaptation, Hagrid is listed. Oh, and the video game adaptation of Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 1, Hagrid is listed as Hagrid the Giant.
Oh, that's interesting.
And in Harry Potter Lego, he's the first ever playable character. And yeah, those are your little fun facts for Mr. Rubeus Hagrid. So, Jamie, I want to focus on 2 relationships here: Hagrid's relationship with Dumbledore and Hagrid's relationship with Harry, obviously the most crucial. And so, if you want to give us the key thoughts on those, and then let's turn that forward facing towards the series and like how he can play his role and those relationships in there.
Okay. So I broke these down into like categories of trust, loyalty, belonging, and redemption for these kind of relationships since we kind of already went through like the timeline, but we'll kind of hit some of that anyway. So Hagrid and Dumbledore have a really interesting relationship that really reveals a lot about who they are. And so I think trust is a big part of that. So a lot of people criticize Dumbledore for his trust of several people, but even Hagrid being one of them. And McGonagall, right off the bat, chapter 1, book 1, is criticizing that. Like, why are you trusting him with such
I
a big
mean,
task?
she might have been right. Not with the Harry task, with certain information.
So, as a teenager, Hagrid experiences Dumbledore's trust after he's wrongfully expelled from Hogwarts. Dumbledore argues for him and allows him to stay on as a gamekeeper at Hogwarts. And then so we see in the books how Dumbledore entrusts Hagrid with carrying baby Harry from Godric's Hollow, which also, like, we talk about how, like, big and large and conspicuous Hagrid is, which wouldn't be the greatest for a lot of things, but he is really powerful in the way that it would be really hard for someone to take Hagrid down. Like, he can protect Harry, you know, throughout the books, but really the beginning and the end on this motorcycle.
Why
Um,
is the motorcycle that Sirius rides big enough for Hagrid? That
I thought about that too when I was just reading this to my daughter. I'm like,
it is funny that like when we start to learn about Sirius in the third, it took me a long time to put 2 and 2 together that she plants that seed.
yeah, which is kind of cool too, because we don't hear about him again until later on. But it does say it's a large motorcycle and then even a larger man on it. So maybe,
He's a little too big.
Sirius is trying to overcompensate by having a large motorcycle, and then Hagrid's still too big for the motorcycle. Anyway, he introduces Harry to the wizarding world. Dumbledore entrusts him to do that and to pick up Harry from the Dursleys and get him his letter. He also entrusts him in the first book with retrieving the Sorcerer's Stone from Gringotts. He in the 3rd book is, as Mitchell talked about, is appointed the Care Magical Creatures professor as soon as his name is, freed up from the accusations of the Chamber of Secrets. And then obviously he is put to task with recruiting giants for the second Wizarding War. And throughout, Dumbledore entrusts him with like secrets and things going on in the school. And book 1 is the biggest, where he entrusts him with the Sorcerer's Stone and how to get the Sorcerer's Stone and all that, which Harry does.
An 11-year-old figures
An
it
11
out.
year old. But a very clever 11-year-old. But these aren't small jobs, they're acts of deep trust, Dumbledore showing confidence in Hagrid's character, and you really think about, like, why don't you have other professors and stuff that you trust this mu I mean, he does trust them with the Sorcerer's Stone, like, in setting
He
up
trusts
the
Snape, he's a trusting
I know.
guy. What but
But, like
you do wonder, what are the other professors like? Why am I not in Dumbledore's inner circle when I'm not a
yeah,
former Death Eater or a giant who lets secrets slip?
and had been accused of opening a Chamber of Secrets and trying to kill children. Then when it comes to loyalty, Hagrid, first off, we know that he is a defender of Dumbledore. In one of the very first interactions with Harry, he's telling him how he's had the greatest thing to basically ever happen to Hogwarts. He's the greatest headmaster Hogwarts have ever had. He defends Dumbledore when he's being removed. Him and Hagrid are both kind of being removed from Hogwarts at the same time. And Hagrid's like, "What the hell? Why are you taking this man away?" And then in book 5, Order of the Phoenix, he kind of still stays loyal to Dumbledore as long as he can after Dumbledore's taken. Harry's trying to warn him and stuff about how feels about him. He naively kind of sticks around, but he wants to uphold the Hogwarts that Dumbledore wanted and created um, in his ways. And then he also keeps his secrets, even though he slips up. So he tries. He tries. And then when it comes to belonging, Dumbledore gave Hagrid a home, essentially. It's kind of like Harry in that way, and like Voldemort. Hogwarts literally became Hagrid's home. He had nowhere else to go. And so after his expulsion, he was allowed back in, and Dumbledore secured him as that role. We don't know for sure this, but I think we all assume that Dumbledore had some sort of say in Hagrid putting the remains of his wand into the pink umbrella. I think our theory is that he with the Elder Wand, Dumbledore was able to fix his wand, but he sends Hagrid out on this journey, and Hagrid is allowed to use a little bit of magic, right?
That's how he described it. Like, I think that's from Dumbledore essentially trying to get him not get caught. He's like, use it only when absolutely necessary. But I don't know if I don't think he's legally allowed. When does Hagrid meet Ollivander? That happens. Oh yeah, when he drops Air off, because Ollivander's like, oh,
Yeah.
I remember your wand and you got it snapped. He's like, you don't still try and use it or anything, do you?
And he kind of hides the umbrella, like trying not to. So we're pretty sure that Dumbledore knows about the umbrella, and he knows that Hagrid can do some magic, even he's not supposed to.
He's doing, a lot of magic, but he also, I think it's worth saying, lives the vast majority of his life on the Hogwarts grounds. And I wonder if that, like, almost, I don't know if stunt his development is a rude way to say it, but like, that's kind of all he knows. And that in Hogsmeade. Well, remember when he gets kicked out, he just goes and lives in caves. Like, my guy doesn't try and get an apartment. He must be saving money. He ain't got no rent.
Yeah. A heartbreaking thing I think about Hagrid is like, he makes relationships, I'm sure, with these students, but then they all move on with their lives and he's still at Hogwarts. And Dumbledore really is his relationship. And so, once Dumbledore moves on and stuff like that, it is kind of heartbreaking to think about Hagrid. But of course, now then he has Harry, and that's part of Hagrid's belonging is meeting Harry and kind of seeing himself a little bit in Harry. And he even kind of mentions that, like, we were both, you know, like on our own and this was our home. And the also obviously the element of like him loving magical creatures and Dumbledore allowing him to embrace that by becoming care magical creature teacher, which we talked about a little bit earlier. That I think Hagrid also sees himself in a lot of those magical creatures.
It makes me a little bit emotional when you think like Hagrid's probably has some unhealthy attachment style, but he is an orphan and he was wrongfully also taken out of the chance to finish school and maybe become a magizoologist. Like, he
Yeah,
didn't even have that opportunity. I Oh man, there would have been some nice Newt and Hagrid crossover, somewhere in there should have been. But his life is a tragedy in a lot of ways, but he finds the people that he loves and he is fiercely loyal to them, which is is beautiful, and obviously he's also fiercely loyal to his animals, and there's something quite beautiful, but also a little bit tragic about that.
Yeah, and that's, my last point was, like, Dumbledore's a big part of his redemption, like, he gives Hagrid so many opportunities that he probably wouldn't have had, and probably maybe not even would have had if he had just been a half giant going to Hogwarts and everything went okay and he never was expelled. There's a lot of bias in this wizarding world and, stereotyping, and so Dumbledore kinda helps shape his life, and then even after Dumbledore's death, Hagrid continues to live out the values and standing with Harry, resisting Voldemort. Harry and Hagrid's relation is kind of weird because I think at first Harry probably sees him as a mentor, but even within that first book, it kind of changes more to like a ally role slash, by the time we get to the second book, Harry's almost looking down on Hagrid, and even we as the reader are like, what? Who really is Hagrid? Is he really, you know?
Do you think when we read Chamber of Secrets originally, we thought for a second that Hagrid was guilty?
I don't think I thought he was guilty in, like, a evil way, like, that
But he
he
might have
purposely did this
accidentally, yeah,
accidentally or naively somehow
yeah.
opened the Chamber of Secrets, but I don't think I ever let myself get to the place where I'm like, "Oh, he's actually evil, Hagrid." So he brings him into this world. He's the first magical person that Harry is able to, like, talk to and learn so much from, and like I said before, a lot of the exposition of the world comes from Hagrid. It's not very clearly explained. It's like, well, this is what happens in Quidditch, and these are kind of the houses, but there's obviously so much more to all those things. But he's always there at Hogwarts for Harry, even when things are hard. He's someone he can go to, and then the times he's not there, it's hard for Harry because he can't. And then Hagrid defends Harry throughout. He defends him when it comes to the Dursleys right away. He defends him against Malfoy. Rita Skeeter at one point spreads rumors against Harry, but Hagrid reassures him he's not alone, and he's always just like that person for Harry to ground him and remind him that he is loved and that, like, I think Harry goes through these moments where he's like, "Wait, am I really bad?" Like in book 2, Harry thinks that he might be Slytherin's heir, he might be evil, and Hagrid's like, "No, you're not. You're a good kid." And then belonging, as I had already talked about, Harry and Hagrid, I think, see a little bit of themselves in each other, like they become family to each other. He gives Harry Hedwig, an ally to Harry, someone that Harry can literally always have around,
Until
especially
Hedwig
even in the Muggle
dies.
world. Yeah.
Unnecessary.
And
Unnecessary.
unnecessary, but it was probably Hagrid or Hedwig.
Oh,
Um, Harry feels at home in Hagrid's hut. He makes Harry food, the rock cakes, even though it's
it's bad.
disgusting. And he just becomes like an older brother, a drunk, often older brother or uncle who just unconditionally loves Harry, both as like outcasts, but also as like family. And yeah, and then at the end, our whole podcast is spoilers, but in the Battle of Hogwarts, Hagrid is forced to carry Harry when he thinks Harry's dead. And it's literally one of the saddest passages, which I'm
Oh, yeah.
getting a little
Gets
teary
me
eyed right
teary,
now.
yeah, every time.
Yeah. He's, carrying Harry, and Harry's like, heartbroken that Hagrid has to carry him thinking he's dead,
Yeah.
for that long walk, which is just like, oh no. Harry just loves Hagrid so much, and Hagrid has really lost so much in his life. Hagrid was rejected by his mother, then his father died, then the place that was supposed to accept him and be his home, Hogwarts, rejected him, and then eventually he has to lose Dumbledore, which was his hero, his mentor, and his everything. And then Harry luckily wasn't dead, but to him in that moment, Harry was dead. And it was just like this poor man has just been beat over and over and over again. But he still lovingly carries Harry in this really sad moment. So, oh, we just love Hagrid and
Yeah. You're
yeah.
about his is it's funny because some bad things happen at his cabin. Well, there's, like, not that it's bad, but the Norbert stuff, and then in the second one, Dumbledore gets arrested at his cabin, and then, Umbridge shows it. But at the same time, that's, like, always where Harry wants to go down, and in fact, at the beginning of book 5 when he's not there, like, there's don't they say, like, "Oh, to not see the smoke coming from his chimney, to not be able
Hmm.
to know that you have this person who he is just this trusted person." And it is interesting to think, like, once Harry leaves, who Hagrid has, and I mean, there's a lot of these relationships you get at universities and high schools where you know someone for however many years, and then you go off, and the nature of the relationship changes. So I hope he found some staff members who are in it for the long haul that he got close to, and they're not as condescending to him as Minerva McGonagall. And I
And
hope
maybe, and I think she learned. I think she learned throughout because she obviously entrusts him
yeah.
with stuff. He's the go
And
getter,
I hope Joe
and
was
she's
wrong. I
Hagrid's
hope
mistress.
he found a love with a regular sized
I know.
person. Fine. Whatever you want.
Well, I think like the really beautiful thing about Hagrid too is like to Hagrid, Dumbledore is Hogwarts, but to many students and to Harry, Hagrid is Hogwarts. Like he is a part of that school and that world to these kids. And when he is gone, I think everyone feels his absence, not just Harry.
I think he's involved in this, like, as I don't know if he's still doing Keeper of Keys, Gamekeeper, and Teacher. I think he kind of is, but he's involved and he's accessible, and that is his world. Whereas if maybe there are teachers who just go home at night, it's a 9 to 5 for them, or Dumbledore has to be in charge of the whole school. It's like your head teacher, your principal is not going to be the person that you're closest to. And yeah, he does embody Hogwarts. I'm watching Lost, and I don't want to equate to big dudes with long hair.
Hugo.
But it's like Hugo ends, a big spoiler alert if you ever want to watch Lost, Hugo ends up being the caretaker of the island. And just the idea that like the people who embrace something and like have innocence, but then they find their place and they want to be there. Also shout out to Rose and Bernard, who just kind of found their happy place on the island. I just think Hagrid found his happy place, and he loves his simple life. Like that is all that he needs.
Well, he gets to take care of his garden. He gets to take care of the magical creatures. He gets to be around these kids who have, so much hope and life in them. And I think he loves that. And I think just in general in pop culture, Hagrid was so beloved. Like you think Robin Williams really wanted to play Hagrid. Like he saw himself in Hagrid. I think about that Lost because I remember that like a lot of us automatically loved Hugo because he reminded us of Hagrid. And also for any Survivor fans, Rupert. And I swear to this day, okay.
Well,
so
Rupert also kind of, you
Survivor.
see Rupert's temper come out, and you're like, ooh, it is the dichotomy. And now there's been some things that come out about Rupert, so it's kind of funny.
And
but,
So, like, I think we all projected that onto that Rupert character. Like, and I think the show obviously
it was good timing.
Ran with it. But when we saw Rupert later on, we're like, oh, he's kind of annoying and weird. Like,
oh, you're like that in real life?
Sorry, Rupert. Yeah, and like once his wife came on for the other season, it's like, I mean, his wife was very nice and lovely, but he just was a different person. But that we loved Hagrid so much that we were like looking to project him onto different people. And even though when we went over the movies, there were some things we wish that like they would have allowed Robbie to do more, and I think overall we kind of wish we could see more complexities with the character of Hagrid, which would be nice to see in the show because even in the books we don't get a ton. Like we were even looking at the quotes, and there's not like a ton of great quotes from Hagrid, but it is interesting how beloved he was and how we all accepted Robbie. We're like, Robbie looks perfect for this role. And when Robbie died, I mean, like, I was very emotional about that because really I loved Hagrid so much and I loved him as Hagrid. And it really did feel like Hagrid died to us, I feel like, when that happened. And it's just like this collective thing about, I do feel like he's the most beloved character in the books universally that most people, because there's complicated feelings about Dumbledore, there's complicated feelings about Harry, but everyone kind of loves him.
I think I could see people finding Hagrid annoying, but for the most part I don't think that's the thing. I mean, and the fact that Hagrid is an orphan himself and he never quite fits into this giant world. He tries to bring his brother, he tries to meet the giants, he tries to date the first ever other half giant within his age range that he meets. We don't know if there's others. Is there?
Okay.
I mean, how many half giants are there out there?
Well, we were talking about that. We don't.
Do you think Mom is still listening? We got in trouble for the wand episode, so I'm not going to dive into this. But
we appreciate Mom listening.
Yeah, he's our best.
But we also, I'm curious on how Hagrid was made. Okay, I'm just gonna.
And Madame Max, and he also says to Madame Maxine, "Was the giant your mother or your father?" So we know the reverse is also,
which is scarier.
We don't know how this procreation is happening, how this intermingling is happening, but we kind of get this thing where Dumbledore embraces any creature, and I guess we should say of human intelligence, which kind of comes off bad because of the things that Umbridge says. But like he embraces Lupin, who was fully human, but these
was
outcasts,
human Stephen.
Oh, yeah. I actually got some feedback from Tim. He was really like, I can't believe you guys let Stephen draft Lupin as a non-human. And I was like, oh, werewolf. I think there's an argument for it, but we should.
Stephen was every category. Stephen had a little thing, so we just gave him one. gay people.
He's
And
like,
I let him because I wanted
let me
Lupin
break
is
this
different
draft rule.
category.
Anyway, if anyone wants to explain how half giants are made, please, let
Please
us
let me know. A
take
needle
us
and
to
a
health
cape. I would
class.
like to know.
I kind of think it over and over again. We don't know why Hagrid's dad died, but it's kind of funny. Like they, they kind of say Disney too often. Like one of the parents is dead for some reason. It's like Harry's parents died for a very specific reason, but so young. But their parents being dead when their parents could have been in their 40s, like, is wild. That's 4 people gone. Like Hagrid's dad, it's kind of convenient how many parents are dead out there.
Well, it just we could talk about this a whole nother time, but Harry's grandparents, it's just like, why wasn't it just like that Voldemort went after them and killed them to threaten
Yeah,
like there's so many
at least a
reasonings behind
couple
it
of
that
them.
she could have retconned and we would have accepted. And instead she's like, they're just dead. Whatever, dragon,
Let
whatever.
them die.
But I do think with Hagrid too, how you're talking about, I'm sure people do have their faults with Hagrid. And even as like an adult now looking back, like, was that a healthy relationship? Like how
But I think
do
that's
you navigate a relationship with an adult and a child? And just like how Hagrid does tell Voldemort where the Sorcerer's Stone
you
is
know
or how to get to the Sorcerer's Stone. There's a lot of faults in Hagrid's, but I think as a child reading that, you almost see a childlike aspect to Hagrid in that he is tricked because he is naive, but he's also like a beautiful person because he is naive in
I
all
think
ways.
back to when I was a kid and not necessarily like trusted adults, but just the amount of adults you're around that you look back and you're like, oh, they were a very irresponsible or like not capable human being, even if they were in their late 20s or 30s, because you just thought of adults as so accomplished.
Yeah.
And I just think about like, you try and not control, but you want your kid to be around good people, but if you've ever known a teacher, they're going to complain about all their colleagues. And you're like, so wait, half the people that I'm going to be teaching my kid are probably idiots. Like you can't control that your kids are around imperfect people, but Hagrid had a lot of imperfections, but was
And he
also,
tried though.
yeah, he was someone it would be an incredible experience to have as your person, even though he's a very non-traditional influence.
He was stunted in his growth. His mentor and who he's following was Dumbledore, who was not the
Healthy.
clearest or the
Yeah.
I mean, we love Dumbledore, and there's a lot there too. And also, it's amazing that Dumbledore did everything he did for Hagrid, and he really like made a purpose out of Hagrid's life and like saved him. But there's also like, not the greatest example in like being a trustworthy person.
Well, there he is. That's Rubeus Hagrid. Does he have a middle name? Do we know?
I don't know.
Rubeus Arcturus. That would be funny. I don't think so. Just Rubeus Hagrid, the homie.
The giant,
Professor
apparently.
Rubeus Hagrid. He's English, this says. Yeah, that makes sense.
Just no
Anyway,
middle name.
really beloved character. Obviously, one that I think was very successfully translated to screen. I'm excited during this next read to really try and differentiate, because actually I think Ron is maybe the biggest character I'm going to do this for, but I really want to be like, what is different about this book character compared to the movie one? So what can we do differently in the TV series that will help this story be as good as it can be? But Hagrid, yeah, we could love that version and get a tweaked version that is also successful. But yeah, just a true favorite. Just one who probably could be even fleshed out slightly more, and given those complex times, given his emotional journey.
And we'll also have the new audiobooks.
Yes.
Mark Addy playing Hagrid is going to add more people to the Hagrid world.
Robert Baratheon himself. Also, now I'm trying to think of other pop culture things where a character is a Hagrid, and there's kind of that certain level of beloved but blubbering, but not. I don't know. It's in between. Anyway, keep that in mind. Keep thinking of ideas, because you have a little Chewbacca thing behind you. I'm like, Chewbacca's not really a Hagrid, but he has something. They're
But
both Harry.
Yeah, but very loyal, blindly
Harry, loyal.
I don't know. I don't know if it's just because I mentioned Robin Williams, but I thought about the genie from Aladdin. He's kind of like
'cause he
wise
is
and helpful, but also not in some ways.
Yeah, he's a little bit of a chaos agent there. Anyway, Rubeus Hagrid is great. And next, we'll be looking into a magical place. We're going to go to Diagon Alley. And we are kind of going with the book a little bit there, aren't we? Which will be good, because we'll have just read Harry's first ever visit. But maybe we should read all the visits. But we're going to continue deep diving into these different elements. It will continue keeping up with all the news and notes and fun ideas with Harry, and keep looking for other ways that the world is engaging with this fandom that's kind of re-percolating before we get back to the TV show. But thanks for your time. If you want to interact with us, please follow us on socials at HPTVPod on Instagram and TikTok, or email us at HPTVPodcast@gmail.com. Jaime, send us out.
Peace out, snitches.